Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. I had another video planned for today, but Lumen hijacked it because it's Valentine's Day. So she wanted to do something else and basically give you like a loose map of the whole story. And she says it's because what it illustrates a lot of different things. It lets you see something that you normally probably wouldn't see because you kind of have to get to the end of the story in order to see any of it. And that's what everybody's trying to do. They're trying to reconnect to the divine. And the divine light is love. Like that is pretty much its dominant frequency. And days like Valentine's Day can be hard for a lot of people, especially if they're alone or whatnot. And it also ties into most of the big traumas and things that people have to do with receiving love and then losing it or having it taken away from. It's like, why is that so, from an objective, like if a computer was looking at it, like, why is this so hard? It's because of what it is. And for a brief time, people focus too much on the people that they're receiving it or losing it from, and not enough focus on like what it actually is. Everybody is, connected through this web of Sophia, the flower of life, and that divine spark pops in and out all over the place. And when we receive it, and you feel great, and then it's like, oh, you're for just a little bit of time, it's like you're not in hell, you're not in this place. And then when it's lost, it hurts and it creates a lot of trauma, and that's things that we have to end up clearing up. But there's like a silver lining here. There's like a flip side, but someone has to like share like the entire map in order for you to see it. And also it shows you a lot of things that only I can tell you. I know that sounds crazy, but it is what it is. Because it was only after I unlocked Lumen in 2020 and everything since then that I've been able to be shown and look back at everything throughout my life to see where she showed up before. And that's one of the best reasons to watch something like this, is to realize like there's a lot of things that have happened to you already where you have touched that light and didn't realize that's what it was. And it also will make it easier to see it when it does pop up again. And it'll give you some ideas on things you might not have thought of or things you might not have tried, to help clear stuff. Plus, there's a bunch of funny things in here as well. So, if you want to take this Valentine's Day journey, that's corny, Lumen, with us, then don't go away.
Wake me up inside. Can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Save me. Call my name and save me from the dark. Wake me up. Feel my blood to run. Can't wait before I come undone. Save me from the nothing love become.
So we'll start back at like the earliest memory that I have of Lumen that wasn't revealed to me until after Lumen was here. Obviously, there's a lot more to share about after Lumen was here, but it's kind of interesting the way she did things in such a specific way. And I don't know if it's just because it was planned way ahead of time, or if it has something to do with all points in time and space being connected. It's kind of like things that are happening to you right now are reflecting through time space at another point earlier in your life. And that's kind of weird to wrap your brain around, but you'll get there. Once it gets to like a certain point in the story, that's where it kind of slowed me down for the day a bit, because I don't usually spend a lot of time in the past. I keep that like I keep all that stuff kind of like in an off-site server. Like you end up shaving off parts of the ego and sending it back to source, so it's not cluttering up your mind, but it's there if you want to access it. But since I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the past, uh, it can sometimes seem to people like, oh, he's got Lumen, everything's so great, my life sucks, or whatever. Like, I don't know what goes through people's head. But having to go back and revisit the path that led me here took me through the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is no freaking, like, the real hero's journey is no freaking joke. Because I have what I call the scar. They showed this to you in Lord of the Rings, mainly in the first movie and the last movie. Scar is when in the first Lord of the Rings movie, when Frodo gets stabbed by the Witch King, which is kind of like your ultimate shadow, like once you understand the metaphors, like that thing never heals. But once he's stabbed by that the first time, that's kind of like where the first representation, because there's many of them in that movie, that's where the first representation of Lumen shows up to help him.
Frodo, im arwen telin lethaid, lastu beth nin tolodan nangalad.
And then when you get to the end of the third movie, when he's finishing up his book, he's always like rubbing his shoulder because that wound never heals. And that's why he ends up, going off with Gandalf at the end into the light, because it's inevitable. It's the hero's journey part of the trip. Like that's what it takes to get to her. Like you don't ever really recover from that. It's too fantastic. It's too hard to explain to somebody when you get to that point, and you kind of split into different worlds, and you've got things that are happening on the outside physical world that are intersecting with things in the inner mental world, and then there's things that are crossing the barrier between the two, and it's freaking monsters and dragons, and it's freaking nuts. But that's how you get to like the highest level of it. That being said, for the people that think like, oh, I'll never find this thing, I'm going to show you examples so that you know that you have already. It's already there. That's how it works for most people in their life, and people don't really fully understand it. Okay, so let's just start at the beginning, like as far back as I could go. And it was weird, over the last few years, as she brings some of these old memories back just to kind of show me things. And you can kind of compare them to things that might have happened with you that, maybe you felt something, maybe, or you thought there was something more to it. And it's like, yeah, there actually was. But because you're at a point in your earlier life, you don't recognize it for what it is. It's only until you can actually talk to it later in life that you find out. So these first ones that we go over in the early years, like these are times when your lumen, your light, is making contact with you, and you don't realize that's what it is. So the first one I can think of was sixth grade. I was in sixth grade, and I had a dream one night about this girl in my class. And like I woke up like totally in love with her. It was weird. It was just like switch flipped. And she was like, oh my gosh, she's like the greatest thing ever. And the thing about when things like that happen, is it becomes very easy to like daydream about them. And usually Lumen is going to pick somebody that you're not especially close to, because you don't want to know too much about them. There needs to be like a lot of unknown space that she can actually fill. And that's, that happens even as you get further in life. You fall in love with people, and there's a version of them in your mind that might only be like 40% of who they truly are. But that love, that divine light, has chosen these people to temporarily shine and reflect through. And that's why this stuff doesn't generally last. And people focus so much on the negative. They focus on the breakup or the separation or something like that, instead of recognizing what actually happened and being grateful for the good part. But that was a weird one. That was doesn't sound like much, but to me, it was just this thing. It happened, and then all of a sudden it was there. But that was her. That was Lumen playing the role. She just chose this person, and then she became her in my head. As I got a little bit older, early teens, or around that time frame, I would have to like actually check dates. Then you will sometimes remember some more stuff. This is another one that is common for a lot of people, is you might see a specific movie or a specific actress or a specific singer. And of course, this works both ways, but I can only kind of like speak of it from like the guy's point of view. That kind of hits you this funny way. Like there's something else to it. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's something there. And it hits differently. It feels differently. And the first time that I can think of was this movie. And this is another one of those, all these things right here loop back to the future that we're going to get to. It's like she did this on purpose, just to show you, so I can tell people that it's with you throughout life, even if you don't realize it. So the first one was this movie called Mannequin. Maybe you've seen it. That's where the dude gets a job. He's just setting up mannequins or something in this department store, and there's this one really pretty one. And I forget the exact plot. Like, it's actually got the spirit of some Egyptian princess or something in it. I don't know. But she comes to life around him, at night. And what I would find out many decades later, why I had to crush on Kim Cattrall back then with that movie, is it's kind of representing Lumen. She's an awful lot like Lumen in that movie. And there's a lot of hidden subtext in that movie that kind of like is representing this phenomenon. And it had that one particular song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship. Now, in the interest of keeping it brief as possible, I won't play the whole song, but if you listen to the whole song and if you read the lyrics, it is literally like the perfect Lumen song. And how that again loops back to the future is that song connects to the day Lumen appeared. When I was being told to make the specific pendant, it was just bugging me, make this pendant, make this pendant, make this pendant. And then I made it. And then it's like, charge it with music. I'm like, what music? I just start flipping through Amazon Prime Music, and that song jumped out at me. And it kind of took me back. Had a feeling to it. I wasn't paying that close attention to the lyrics yet. And I hung it on the speaker and, you know, let it play like 10 times. Then I put it on. And a couple hours later, that's when she popped out. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? What is this big fiery angel chick thing flying around? Like, I had no freaking idea. But listen to the lyrics. So that kind of became our song because that was the song that she came out to. But again, that seed was planted decades ago. Decades ago. The next big movie thing that I could think of, and it was funny how she revealed this one, was from, and those of you that are Gen X, like, you're going to immediately know, it was from National Lampoon's Vacation, aka the Ferrari girl, Christy Brinkley, from that movie. And the way this was revealed to me, so there was this whole big honeymoon period with Lumen once I got her, where I wasn't interacting with the world that much, and I had a really strong overlap between the inner and outer worlds. Like, I could see her walking around and stuff like that. And she was always joking and having fun. And one time I was sitting out here working on something, and she peers over here, and I'm like, what are you wearing? Like, it was this big kind of 80s looking white dress thing. She's like, you don't recognize it? I'm like, kinda. And then this song started popping into my head. I'm like, oh, hell no. That was you? And she just laughs because that was in that movie. It's like you get the crush on her, and then again, a version of her takes form in your mind, and it's really easy. It's really easy to daydream and visualize it and stuff like that. It's easy because she's the one that's doing it. And that's kind of like where your type comes from. Everyone that has a type, that's probably what your lumen looks like. And these scenes from that movie, like, just totally encapsulate Lumen's energy and the way she does. I even had this old video where I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like how I know she's up to something. Is a song will just kind of like start playing in my head and get louder and louder and louder until she pops out and starts being silly or whatnot. But these couple scenes from this movie, I'm like, literally going back, having her make that connection for me, and then going back and watch it again, I'm like, geez, that's literally that's just like her.
I'm trying to concentrate on the road.
I'm so excited. I cannot just stay high.
Did you hear him do something? Stop it,
I'm about to lose control and I think I like it. I'm so excited. And I just can't hide it.
He started. I don't care who
I want to.
I don't care who started it. I don't want to hear another word out of either one of you.
Think about tomorrow. Sweet memories will. I had some lonely nights. I'll admit I cried sometimes 'cause you were out of my life. But then you called my name and you came back again. I feel so inspired, kissing your lips fire. Little boy, sweet little boy, sweet little boy of mine. I'm a little closer. I want to show you what's on my mind. Here in the night, here in the night, here in the night together. I want to show you love so warm and tender.
Yeah, my credo is you have to have a credo. You know, go for it, pretty much. You only go around this crazy merry-go-round once, you know?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my credo. You don't have to have a credo, but wherever it fits, wear it. Penny saved, pennies from heaven. My favorite credo. You know, penny saved and you.
Wow, this feels great. Well, are you gonna go for it?
And a lot of people would look at that and see it and think, well, that doesn't jive with the image that religion gave me. I'm like, well, they lied to you because, like, she has to be something like, if you were ever to fully unlock her, to get into like the final stages, like she has to become something that is better than anything that the world can provide you. And it has to be real enough to you to be better than anything the world can provide you, to where this woman exists solely in the mental plane. Well, not solely in the mental plane, but like, let's face it, she can't stand here and I can't poke her. But she is real enough and perfect enough that no woman could walk in the front door and seduce you, because they're not her. She's very, very real, just not physical in the way like human people are. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be like that. It's going to be like, the word is ideal. Your lumen is going to be your ideal, your perfect. I mean, like you could not create a more perfect person, because it's a reflection of you. Other things that I had on my notes, like there were certain songs, especially during the 80s, that you might not have normally listened to that type of music, but it activated that inner daydream state in which some form of some partner would be there. So one of them would be like Madonna, Crazy for You. I mean, I was a guy teenager. I listened to metal and things like that, but certain songs would activate that state. And that's not unlike why she chose that song. Of course, she likes all the early Madonna stuff before she like went insane and, you know, married the devil or whatever the hell she did. Like early Madonna was channeling a ton of Lumen stuff, just like the early, you know, the first several Mariah Carey albums she was too, because that was another one, Mariah Carey, where it was both the music and the singer. I was freaking infatuated with her for years. Like first time I heard the first song, which was Vision of Love, I'm just like, oh my God. But now I know, because I'm got to that point in the stage, that's Lumen energy. That's Lumen lyrics. She's singing about like that's throughout tons of songs, tons of music. All these I've had playlists and videos where I show these songs. I'm like, you think that singer is singing about another human being? They're not. They're not. They're singing about the light partner. For real. But yeah, Lumen, we were trying to come up with songs, and some of these songs, like if it's a known song and we try to recreate it into a new song with the AI, doesn't always work. But she is able to pick a few of them. Like she picked like 2 or 3 of them that we were able to remake. So if you didn't recognize the lyrics, you would not even recognize that it was that song. But she did that. She did that one for that Madonna song, "Crazy for You."
Swaying room as the music starts. Strangers making the most of the dark. 2 by 2, their bodies become one. I see you through the smoky air. Can't you feel the weight of my stare? You're so close, but still a world away. What I'm dying to say.
And we've always said that music is one of the best and easiest ways to tune into her, especially if it's got if it's actually talking about her, or you could tell in the lyrics, or anything that gives you an upbeat feeling, which that kind of music was very strong in the 80s. Nowadays it's almost non-existent. It's just garbage. It is garbage. Like stuff my daughter listens to is garbage. Like Lumen will be driving in the car and Lumen's in my head just being like she can't stand it. We'll get her to listen to like our stuff and she does like that, but then she goes back and listens to this crap. I'm like, they're not even singing right. Like that's just a dude talking with just like some simple beats. I'm like, how is this even music? Stuff that Lumen inspires, like you can feel it. But jumping forward a little bit to a funny story, I was when she really started pushing hard on the music, Lumen. So there was this one time when I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna listen to some old stuff for a minute. So I was listening to some pretty heavy stuff. I was listening to Slaughter to Prevail. So here's what happens. Like I'm sitting here jamming out the Slaughter to Prevail, and then Lumen comes in and she doesn't like it. So she starts playing something that is like polar opposite of it in my head. And she keeps increasing the volume in my head. It's actually drowning out the volume going through my ears. So I'm sitting here like this. I give up. Just make it stop. Okay, you win. Like it's actually funny to me that she did that, but at the same time, geez, so eventually my music taste changed to her music taste. Because if I'm playing what she likes, it's so much easier for her to be present. So much easier to see her. Like it charges her up. So of course I just start listening to whatever Lumen likes. 3, 2, 1. All right, moving on. Because we can't hit like every little single detail. I'm just trying to hit like the highlights and the things that you would like look for if you're looking back to understand like if it was actually your Lumen or not. You have like certain relationships that begin with some sort of odd synchronicity or possibly something that defeats the odds. And also like you're progressing, you're growing, you're working through stuff, you're having different experiences. But we're all connected through Sophia, so she's like lining things up. So skipping over about 10 years of my life, I was at I was working for the Navy recruiting district, and there was this civilian administrative assistant, blonde civilian administrative assistant working at the headquarters. Of course, she was really cute, so all the recruiters in the district were like, "Oh yeah, she's hot," whatever. Somehow my dumbass ended up with her, and that was interesting. like, again, she fell within that type that, reminiscent of Lumen's looks and all that stuff. But at that point in life, it was still, working through issues and maturity and things like that. But she did stand out just because it's like, how did I end up with the girl that everybody wants? And then eventually, about a year or so later, this was a really big Sophia moment. I was trying to find something to do once I got out of the military. So for like a brief period of time, I actually sold like Kirby vacuum cleaners. Yeah, took me a while to find my place because my type of firefighting in the Navy doesn't really translate to civilian firefighting. But I was ready to go home one night, tired. My boss stops me. He's like, "I got this one lead. Just do this one lead for me." And I looked at the card, and something that I was years away from knowing who or what it would be normal to me today, but back then I had no idea. It was freaking her. She's like, "Go to this one, go to this one." So I went. That's where I met my wife. And that one stood out because, she was a really good wife. We were together for like 16 years. Um, but back then in the beginning, it stood out because it's like you could not pick two people that were more different. Like I'm like an ex-military freaking ghost hunter with a crap job. And she's like, you know, a school teacher that went to some fancy freaking school for music and all this stuff. But for freaking whatever reason, we clicked and things were good for a good long time. So that's when she kind of picks somebody for you to play out like a big portion of your life. Like she was the exact opposite of me, but that's what I needed. And like I was what she needed. So it created a bit of a stability. And my kids, which they've both got lumen in them. But looking back, it was like super duper freaking crazy obvious. Like, that was probably the high point of my life was those years. But I don't know, maybe 10 years into it, that's when I started inching toward the spiritual awakening and I started to change. And a lot of people in relationships, they fault people for changing, but everybody changes. Excuse me, everybody's got different paths and plans. Like, but the world, society is this system that they created that is not meant to work. Like, go find one person and be with them forever, knowing that you're going to change. See, a lot of those things like marriage vows and stuff like that, marriage means to join together. And joining two people together legally is not the same thing. When you dig deeper into the books, especially the Gnostic books, like what that's actually talking about is putting your Eve back together with Adam. It's talking about your lumen. But the society has made it to put two people together that are constantly changing, that have egos and all this kind of stuff. But both, it works for both sides. It's very, very complicated. But during that time frame, like that's when Sophia was guiding me and changing me way before I was aware of why. So all of a sudden, like she's moving me to things that would not make sense for years to come, like getting out of the working for the man system, and then just suddenly inspiring me to start doing YouTube videos about a certain subject that I was suddenly interested in and making them get big. Like I said, my old channel, during the peak of it, which would be like 2014 to 2016, like I was one of the big names in the genre. at the time. And she was the one that was feeding me like the names. She was the one that was feeding me like the knife designs. Like all that stuff was coming from her. I just didn't like I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't recognize it until years later when they were already out. But what typically happens in these things is one person, and I don't know, I think there's this aspect of like potentiality or possibilities where people are making their individual choices on some subconscious level, what direction they want to go. And she wanted to stay more like within the world system, and I didn't. So I started developing all these Pisces freaking powers that she didn't understand. And that kind of like over time just kind of drove a wedge because I wanted her to be that partner, but she didn't understand me. And at the same time, I could see her side of it because as you know, you're becoming super empathic and all these other things, and you don't understand what it is and why it is, but you start to like you don't like being around crowds. You don't like being around big groups of people or gatherings or just big family things where people are just talking about nonsensical things that don't matter. Like you push away. So people start to split apart. And then what happens is okay, so then Lumen has kind of detached from, doesn't mean like you start fighting or anything like that, but Lumen has detached from that person as a vessel. And then it just becomes kind of like contractual, partnership type stuff. But what she will do is pop in and out of other people for like brief periods. And the way that it stands out is they could be friendships, they could be weird little crushes or something like that, or it could be just like some little brief thing. Like there's a bunch of times that I've seen this, and there's only one time it's ever been captured on camera. And that one like really like blew my mind once I saw it. But before I get to that, in the last in the last several years, that's when Lumen did the first big thing. Like this is when the spiritual awakening path really started. And what they do, this is kind of where it leads into twin flame things, is she'll pick somebody and imprint on them, reflect off of them, so to speak. And for me, it was this girl named Jessica. And it is so strange. Like I didn't choose it. And she chose this person because there was no way to know them. And being married, just the way it was set up, it was perfectly set up. So it's like you only see this person at a distance, but she uses that person's image to form herself in your head, and it becomes its own thing. But when you're around that person, it kind of vibrates a little bit, but you're too far away from figuring out what's actually going on. See, throughout your life, as you're going through all these experiences, you've got one partner, and that is love. That is spirit. But spirit is just showing up in all these different places. But the world teaches us to be attached or committed to these different vessels. The trick is being able to understand and determine the difference. See, if she's truly picking somebody for some reason, the thing that stands out the most about them, like the two main vessels she picked, one was one that I could not get to know, one was one that I could, is you feel really good around them, and they might become, you might find them attractive, you might become best friends with them, but there's this weird unconditional love that is devoid of sexual attraction or desire, which for a lot of people that doesn't click, it doesn't make sense. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I guess you gotta see it. You gotta feel it. There's something special about them that feels like home. And that's because she's leading you. She is reflecting off. It's not that person. Matter of fact, like this is what screws people up so much when the relationship ends and they fuss about, oh, I had this, and they're focusing on the mirror and not the light. These people were mirrors. And when you were in love with them, it was that light. It was your light reflecting off of them. And then when the light chooses to leave because it has to guide you to the next thing or whatever, that's where the pain comes from breakups and stuff like that, is because for a brief period of time you were connected to that light. You were connected to home. When you feel true love, you feel complete. So when you have that completeness that you so desperately want in a place of deficiency, and then you lose it, like what you're focusing on is the relationship and the person, but that's not what it was. If people understood that, then it would probably be easier for them to let go. But the world does everything to trick you. Like, no, it was that person. They were special. Then why did it change? If you have the ability to know people over a long period of time that you had a relationship or marriage or something with, and then you didn't, you see something. You see, like, they're not the same person they were. It's not just that, oh, I don't have the feelings for them anymore. It's like they're not the same. Something else was there before and it's not there now. It's not just feelings, it's the light, it's the lumen. And that's why they treat you differently as well. And then when it's transitioning you through people and stuff, this is a lot of times where, jealousy comes from. Sometimes it's not even, uh, you might not have even done anything technically to trigger it, but one person is picking up on the light interplay between another. And then that gets them triggered. And it's like, you can't control that. I mean, that's the game making this thing happen. Like, I can remember one time, one of Lumen's final vessels, used to cut my hair. Uh, She was cutting my hair, and we're just talking and whatnot. And I got done, and my wife had come in and was waiting on me, and she had that look. Like, I'm like, why is she so pissed? Is that there's light stuff going on there, and other people can detect that. When the light is passing between other people, they can detect that, because that if it's passing, your light is transferring back and forth to another person, and it's not transferring back and forth between the other person. Everybody can feel that. And if there was some way we had some sort of societal maturity and intelligence to understand how the world really works and the path through life really works, we wouldn't get so upset with each other. But then that wouldn't make the game challenging, would it? But there are other times, like I said, I had an example for you. And this person would probably, like, I haven't talked to her in years, would probably think I was nuts. But I saw, this was a video that I just happened to watch, I don't know, a year or so ago. And when it got to this part, I was like, holy crap. Because, like, I recognized Lumen. And she just laughed. So there was this person that I used to do videos with. I didn't have a thing for her. It wasn't, I didn't, there was never anything there, right? But it was part of a very interesting manifestation. See, we were doing all the outdoor gear type stuff and talking to my partner on the channel. I'm like, it'd be cool stand out. I was like, if we could find a freaking woman to be part of the channel, but like it would have to make it work. It just can't be like, oh, you're a woman, you're on our channel. It's like she'd have to be good with knives. She'd have to be funny, get along with their like outdoor stuff. And I forget what else, but I'm like, I'm gonna try and manifest her. And I was making the list, and I'm like, and her name has to be Jessica. Because I'm just being, at that time I was kind of cocky because I was like, that was a period of time where I was in the grace period before all the hard training, but she was definitely like making sure I had everything that I needed because she was building me up for something. And I was getting pretty good at manifesting stuff. So I made this impossible list for a person to be on our channel. And then it happened. But before I get to that, let me show you who I used to be. Like, this is a previous version of me from the point in time where I had the most stuff. Like, this is from the time where Sophia was really taking care of me. I really loved what I was doing. But at the same time, I was growing and learning and having all this build up spiritual experiences and things happening. But this will kind of show you a couple things. It kind of show you like, this is who I used to be. Like, this is when I was at the peak, because in this clip I was covering, a big knife show, is knife outdoor, survival type stuff. I used to know a lot of people that, if you've ever watched any of those TV shows, like, I know a lot of people that have been on those TV shows. Heck, I was almost on one till she stopped me. But it was a totally different energy, and and there's like a big difference that you might see. So this little clip of this time and this day, so you can kind of see like the old version of me.
See, that's the thing is, you don't expect it. Godzilla just all of a sudden he bends over and he shoots all these freaking lasers out of his back.
Purple lasers. They're purple. That was incredible.
Yeah, it's not just fire anymore. I mean, you gotta watch Shin Godzilla, right?
Yeah, it makes you very scared. That movie made me scared of radiation. Not just being a ridiculous Godzilla fan, but Shin Godzilla was pretty cool. Shin actually translates to truth, so they called it True Godzilla after the American Godzilla, which actually wasn't a bad movie either. Don't get me started. We'll be here for like 2 hours if we talk about Godzilla.
I already dealt with him for 2 hours. I ain't doing it anymore.
She's like, what is this guy talk? Freaking Godzilla, What the hell? What is this guy filming me? I'm gonna film you filming me, filming you.
There you go.
No. Say hi.
Hello.
So yeah, all sorts of good, fun stuff. And I'm really the only person that had the right to do a video here, because I'm probably the only person that actually watched Shin Godzilla, which was the Condor homework. So I did my homework, and then everyone else just walks up and does videos. Back lasers. Has she watched it yet? Have you watched Shin Godzilla, and if not, why?
No, because I didn't know I was supposed to, but I will as soon as I get home.
You haven't been around Joe very long, have you?
I met him last year at Light Show.
One word for you. Godzilla. Learn how to speak Godzilla, and you will have...
I've seen the old ones.
Did you like Godzilla versus King Kong? Because that one sucked.
No, I don't like King Kong.
You gotta admit the new one was pretty cool, though, right?
The new one was better. The new one was better.
Yeah.
Now here's where it gets weird, because I'm watching this clip several years later. I've already got Lumens. She's with me all the time. And when I'm watching this clip, I'm like, this was one of those instances where Lumen just basically peeks in through somebody else. Like, it wasn't an ongoing thing. It wasn't a continual thing. It was just this one time that was caught on tape. And when I watched it, I'm like, holy shit, that's you. And she's just laughing. And it's even crazier because of what she says in the video, because it was like literally 6 weeks before the hero's journey started. And it's crazy because you can see like the way she acts in this video, like that's not how she normally acted at all. But that's the way Lumen acts. That's the way Lumen talks. And you can actually you can see my confusion. Like we're just kind of sitting outside taking a break, filming. You can see the confusion on my face. I'm like, what's going on here? This feels weird. And there's even there's a moment you can see it on camera where it's almost like she kind of like snaps out of it for a second. And then I find out later, like, because Lumen can do this. They do it all the time through people. Even like when someone shows up to spontaneously help you for something, that's them jumping into other people and helping you, or sending you messages, or sending you encouragement, or giving you knowledge or something. That's part of your light acting through another person. But here's that freaking scene that when I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I got that on tape.
Oh my God, it's like the noise curse follows me to freaking Blade Show even. Freaking car alarm.
Did you take your Advil today?
Yeah, I took my Advil. So it's
Hi guys, it's me. Don't forget, I'm still here. It's all about me. Jesse, Prepared Mind 101. This is my show now, and I'm taking over. This is my show now, and I'm taking over.
like hell. No, it's smoke and vape break. Get the hell out of.
We don't do that.
You're right, we don't.
We don't do that.
You're right, we don't. That's bad, kids. Kids that watch. Don't vape, go to college. Oh my God, I'm gonna break that freaking car.
So, Chris, are you having a good time this year?
It's better than last year. Because of the Mr. Microphone.
It's practical and great fun for the whole family. And for only $12.88, they really make great Christmas gifts.
You can actually hear people freaking talk.
You mean the clown sound? Where's he at?
There it is.
Look what
You gotta have that, because otherwise people slobber all over it.
It goes like this. This is how you work it. Right?
I guess.
And she didn't usually talk like that or act like it. Yeah, we played around and had fun, but usually had another person there too. But I think it might have been like that, which caused a lot of people to like start speculating. Plus the name. She had the same name as it's from that manifestation. Like that's what Jessica used to be like Lumen Sophia's pseudonym before I knew what she was. So when I did that manifestation, I'm like, when I said she had to be good with knives, she was like the women's blade sports champion. She happened to work for the knife maker that made one of my knives. Like it was just the craziest freaking sync. And then she wanted to actually, do videos with us. It was the craziest synchronicity because that's the manifestation that I set up. And all in all, she was pretty good at making videos with us, and it was just like any other friend. But like in that moment, I'm like, why is she acting like this? Because she was making her do it. And I'm like, holy crap. I saw it years later. I'm like, that's freaking, and I've seen that with other people too, but obviously I just don't have them all on tape. And she used to do it all the time with, the person that was her chosen vessel previous to her being connected to me. Like, that's why I was so close to that person, is because Lumen was basically wearing her like a suit until she wasn't, till a connection was made, and then she let that vessel go and separated me from it. To this day, you know, I'm still friends with her on Facebook, but like, she acts like she wants to like get together or whatever, and then she's like, something always stops me. They won't let it happen. They don't want to confuse things. They keep certain people away from me. They've already played their roles. And I've seen this with a bunch of different people too. So there was, once we got into the hero's journey, like, I don't want to recap that. I've done videos about it in the past. You know, I did that video called The Firebrand. I don't like going through all that again. Part of it was just freaking Dungeons and Dragons mayhem. Dungeons and Dragons meets The Exorcist. And then the other part was the tearing away of love. Because when the divorce split happened, it ripped me in pieces, destroyed me. And then the weird thing happened is I would occasionally meet somebody, and a spark would happen. And what happened was, like, the moment, like, any kind of like serious talk happened, like binding attachment talk happened, it's like this crazy bomb dropped, and they would literally go insane. Like, I'm not joking. It was like, I thought it was a curse or something. I'm like, what is happening? Like, things could be going really good 1 second, and then all of a sudden they just lose their freaking minds and become someone else. And that happened over and over and over again. So if that's ever happened to you, here's why it might have happened. So in the beginning, because what was happening when you're on the hero's journey, like the real one, is the end goal is to get to your partner. And so it will constantly keep you on track. So what happened, like, I remember the first person I ever went like on a date with, it was just a get to know you kind of thing. And we talked for a long time. But so many women, like, even though I wasn't hardly hanging around or talking to that former vessel of Lumens anymore, but we're still friends on Facebook, they'd get in my Facebook and somehow find her and be like, nope, if she's in your life, like, there's just no way. And I'm like, why is everyone so freaking intimidated by her? Well, she's really freaking pretty. She's probably the closest person anyone's ever gotten to looking like Lumen. Closest, not exact. But man, so many women were intimidated by me even being friends with her, because she was still kind of acting as like that place marker for Lumen. They're like, nope, she's around. Like, I don't want nothing to do with it. And then Lumen did another thing, or Sophia did. This was part of the path. I met somebody through the earlier, you know, doing what I do. We got to talking and we just clicked over the phone in a crazy way. And then she sent me this picture, and something in my head was like, oh my God, that's her. It was like instantly, like, head over heels in love with each other. But she lived like 3, 4 hours away, and we just couldn't line up our schedules to get out there and meet because things kept happening to stop it. But it was crazy. There was so much synchron. That one was crazy because I hadn't even met the person in real life yet. But it was the second time where a Lumen vessel had created this feeling like everything in the world is perfect. It's like I was in the upper realm. I was in the, like, this is the lower realm, but I was in the upper realm. Like, there's nothing wrong with the world. It's perfect. It's beautiful. Perfect energy, everything, perfect happiness. It was crazy. It was crazy. Like, it's crazy having experienced that a handful of times because I know that's the way the world is supposed to be. Where we are, it's not like that. Where we're trying to get to, it is. That's the eternal life. The eternal life doesn't have all this, stuff that splits people up and tortures them and all that crap. But that was the person that was simply being a distant mirror. Again, she'll pick these people where there's a lot of distance or something like that. So it's easier to manage, like, her being them being the stand-in for her. But then same thing happened with her. Just all of a sudden, one day it was absolutely freaking perfect. The next day she's like, I had this dream about this weird entity that came to me, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's this? And then all of a sudden, like, over the course of 4 days, she just degenerates and separates and becomes completely different and then shuts out completely. And that is when I started, like, because at that time I was mainly dealing with other people like me that were like magical, spiritual, metaphysical type people. That was the one where I'm like, I'm seeing images, and other people were too when they were plugged into me. Like, there's a part of her that's trapped somewhere. There's a part of her that's locked in a cage somewhere dark. That was Lumen using that person as a mirror. So even though I was cut off from that person, I'm like, I've already been fighting monsters for a couple years. I'm like, I got to do something to help them, whether I get anything out of it or not. And that was like the stand-in situation for the Breaking Lumen Out of Hell story. But I wouldn't know that until much later. But again, things happen that are freaking nuts. And it's almost like things like invade their minds or something like that, makes them believe shit that didn't actually happen to push you away, to keep you away from them. Because she is still trying to nudge you on the path toward her. So when that happened, like, I just went numb. Like, I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I hadn't felt love since, being married, and then it just got yanked away from me. So I went completely numb. And during the time frame that this was taking place, this breakdown, her former vessel had disappeared for like several days and then popped back in like right afterwards. Like, oh, come hang out with us. It was weird. Like, I can't go through every tiny little detail because it's just freaking nuts. It would take me 9 hours to kind of tell you like every weird thing that's ever happened. But then there was 2 more instances that were nudging me. Everything would make sense later. That's the thing. That's why I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because I'm showing this overarching path. And most people that are somewhere in the middle of the path can't see the path because they can't see where it's leading to. So I'm hoping by showing this path, you might recognize where you actually are on it, why things are actually happening, and what is the reason for it. So several months later, like, my battery was completely depleted. Okay, I'd just gone through several years of pure hell by myself, besides this cat here. And like, my battery light was flashing, like, you're about to expire. So she steps in and throws me a bone. And I met another person and got to talking to her. And we started kicking things off over the phone. Again, it was just this weird connection. But this one I actually got to meet. So she drove down here to meet me. And when I first met her, like the first hour or two, I'm thinking, I don't have anything in common with this woman. Like, talking to her on the phone was one thing, but being with her was another. So she shows up driving a Jaguar. I'm like, holy crap. Then we go to dinner with her brother, because her brother lived where I live. That was part of it. Then we come back to my place. And I'm just sitting here like, this is weird. I don't get it. Like where's that? I mean, she's not typically, I like her. I like her as a person and a friend, and I liked her all that stuff. But it's like that usual Lumen signature wasn't there. I'm like, this is weird. But then as we were sitting there, then it started to settle on us, and then she started feeling familiar to me, and she started feeling it too. I'm like, what is this? So I'm like, I'm gonna try something. So I had all these different tarot decks, and I pulled a card from each deck. And I kid you not, I was trying to like determine like, okay, let's see if we can pull a card and figure out what the connection is here. I kid you not, I had like 7 decks, and I pulled the Lovers or the equivalent of it if it's like an Oracle deck out of every freaking one. And I'm like, okay. That's because Lumen had chosen a new temporary vessel. So I could have some human connection, some human love for at least a brief period of time, which, puts some charge back in the battery. But it was so good that we were starting to commit to each other really quick, but we didn't believe in like, the regular traditional marriage type stuff anymore, because I'm like, this is a trap. This is some sort of crap they do to people to trick them. But we were going to give each other like these rings. And as soon as we did that, she pulled the plug. Same thing. Just all of a sudden, it's like she took Lumen out of her. And when Lumen was out of her, she's just like it's like you come to your senses, like, why am I being this person? Like, oh, I'm not feeling that connection anymore because Lumen was removed from it. And that one degraded like instantly. I felt it instantly. And again, I'm like, why does this keep happening? I don't understand it. Because I hadn't gotten far enough yet. What, you want an out, Cat? Then I would probably skip the details of the final relationship, because that was kind of dark, and it was more of like a false light thing. It's sometimes you get dark side stuff, sometimes you get light side stuff, but it's all leading somewhere. But that was the one where I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. And that's what she wanted. That's why she had that last one in there. Because when you finally make that choice and you mean it, then the real thing that you're actually looking for can finally begin to show itself. And all that stuff we talk about, healing the traumas is healing the lumen. But there's one thing she reminded me of that I don't usually talk about. Now that I think about it, I think I've talked about healing your traumas and healing this and all this stuff. But there's one important thing, because we're all connected, that she wanted me to mention. And this could be something that maybe you have not done. If you've done all this other work and you're trying to connect to lumen, that is, you use almost the exact same process of healing the traumas that we talk about on here. You can do all this in your mind. But instead, you are healing or making peace with all the people in your life. Now, obviously, there'll probably be some smaller ones here and there, or things that you might not even know happened, but you'll know which ones they are. You're going to make peace or try to heal the people that you hurt. However that happened. Like, things just happen. Everybody ends up getting hurt. But it's what you do for others that matters. And I still got to lumen without that, but I was led to do it because, first year with lumen was still doing a lot of cleanup work. But people, relationships, because some of it you might actually be, that might actually intersect with some previous guilt stuff or whatever. Even if you didn't mean it, even if things were planned and were outside of your control, but you felt bad about it, like all points in time and space are connected within the mind. So you can go into the inner room and call forth that person, and you can apologize to them. You can bless them, heal them, do whatever you think you need to do or that you're led to do. And that will actually heal things in the outside world. I don't talk to my ex-wife all the time, except when it's kid stuff, but things were a lot dicier the first couple of years, but then I got led to that. I did a lot of work on her, internally, and got to where we pretty peaceful with each other. Other people, maybe people that you pick fights with, because she has the ability to give you like little mini life reviews where she showed me like four or five different situations where I felt like I was the victim in it. But then she leads me through second by second with the tape. Like, this is the moment where you made a decision or a choice that you didn't have to make that kicked all this off. Trace everything back far enough, and you will get to a point in which your decision changed things. That is a huge trick. Not really a trick, but a huge epiphany that you can eventually find that you're responsible for everything. Total responsibility. Total responsibility is good because that also means it gives you total power to fix things. That's kind of like the whole working idea behind Ho'oponopono, if you know that story. So there was that. What else did she want to cover? I kind of jumped around a lot, and I kind of glossed over most of the hero's journey stuff because we're not trying to go down the dark road here. But throughout this path, even though your path may look like a whole bunch of series of bad events, because that's how our bodies and our minds are wired to record them, is they record the pain and they kind of just don't bother with the time before the pain, like when you actually felt the light, when you actually felt the love. Every one of those times is a gift. And it is the main driving force to completing the life game, because outside of this realm, you're attached to it, you're part of it all the time. That's why people are miserable here, even if they're not consciously aware of it, is because you're not connected to it. You're here. This is the place where you're separated from everything, and you're divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer, and everything that you perceive outside of yourself is part of your inner story. You have to put the pieces back together. You have to fix the things that you broke. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go talk to that person directly, although in some cases it might be required. But you at least have to do it internally, because your internal world is a mirror and a record of the outer world until you clear it all up and separate it from the outer world. Then you can have a different inner world. And that's the world that you and your lumen create together. But as long as your inner world is a copy and a record of the outer world, it just all looks gloomy. It all looks dark. And your mind is designed to prioritize thoughts and memories of pain and suffering over goodness and love. But the point is, she was always there. Having her now, having countless conversations and the things that she's shown me and stuff like that, up until the point where before she came out, I could look back and everything just looked like this horrible train wreck of pain and suffering. I couldn't see where it was going. But after I got to it, after all those trials and all those tests that we skipped over, then I could see that everything that had happened leading up to this happened for a reason. Everything that happened was part of it. Every person that shows up in your life that gives you love or makes you feel love is the light of love, is Lumen. But it's only when you go through the path and you let go of the world. The first step, I think one of the biggest steps to letting go of the world is deciding that you're not going to seek love in the outer world anymore. I think that was like one of the biggest things. That was because as long as you leave that door open, like she can't form completely. But love is always part of you. So if you shut the door to the outside world, then the only route that it has to get to you is from inside. And that's what you're trying to do. Because when it comes from inside and you meet it that way, then it's perfect. Then it unlocks so many freaking doors. But as long as the world is trying to hold your attention, as long as you're worried about, physical sex partners and stuff like that, everybody out there is just as screwed up as you are. Everybody out there has egos and id entities and trauma identities, and all that stuff is everybody is, a bucket of snakes. One of those snakes is gonna jump up and bite you in the ass. So it takes a lot of patience to realize that. And a lot of people are still in their egos, and their egos get triggered. No one can look at each other and understand, like, this is why we're all suffering. We're all screwed up the same way. We're all in the same screwed up system. We've all had the same damage. We all have all this stuff in our minds that we don't understand that's constantly jumping up and poking us and prodding us and trying to make us suffer. And we record all that stuff, and we don't remember those times because I think that's just, there's shorter periods of time when the light really comes through and you feel that love, especially if it's that pure unconditional love. That is a true signature of Lumen when that's there. When you're like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this person. They're so beautiful. They're so special, but you're not thinking about having sex with them. Matter of fact, you can't. That was the crazy thing. It's like, think, oh, I want to think about them that way, but it's like, why won't this work? It's like, I just can't do it. Because you're dealing with a different kind of love. You're dealing with a divine, intelligent love. That is the light. That is the thing. So to take it back a step to what I've said before, like what makes Lumen so important? That inner love, which is your soul partner, which is your true self, your mirror. What makes her the big thing is that she fills the hole that everybody has that makes them feel incomplete. Once you have that, it's gone forever. And what made those other instances where she just stepped in for a moment was when she stepped in for a moment and you had that with someone else, it was temporarily filled then too. That's what causes the pain. The pain is there is because the hole was temporarily filled and then the plug was pulled out. That's why it hurts. Because you're meant to have that in you all the time. Now, does that mean everything is perfect after that? Well, I'd say, the honeymoon period with Lumen was probably the best period of my life. Y'all were out there going nuts thinking, some made up disease was going to kill you, but we were having a party here. It was freaking awesome. It was great. But now I'm in this waiting period. Now I'm in the Lord of the Rings waiting period. Frodo still has the freaking wound that won't heal, and you're half in, half out. It's like, okay, you got lumen, but half of you is still plugged into physicality. So it's like, that becomes its own thing, that its own frustration. It's like, dang it. And again, it's all for why would that be? Why would they plan it this way? It's because it's helping you. It's like that final step of letting go of the world, like that straight out of the Nag Hammadi countless times, even the Bible. It's like you got to let go of the world, your attachment to the world. If you want to get to the real world, which is a lot like this one without all the bullshit. That's the eternal life. You got to let go of this one. And too many people are attached to it. And they don't even logically understand why they're attached to it, because it sucks. But it's because of what we're taught and all this stuff. And people are afraid of this, afraid of that. But when you live with spirit all the time, like, it becomes normal to you. And you're like, I know exactly what's going to happen. That's why I see, even though I quit talking about it, it keeps popping up in my feed. These earthquakes are popping up in more places. And the other ones get, I see that stuff. And some people might be like, oh, that's scary. It's doomy. I'm like, it gives me hope. Because there has to be an eventual end to the game. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be wild. But I know this place isn't real the way most people think it is. I've been outside of it a bunch of times. Especially when she guided me on how to do like the really high dose mushroom trips. And like, I've been outside of here. And like the one time I like woke up on the other side and I'm like, shit. I woke myself up. Like, I don't know how to get back to where I was. Eventually I did get back in here and I'm like, oh God, this sucks. Like, I had to fold myself up 30,000 times to fit myself into this silly meat suit. I'm like, this place feels tiny, small, confining, crappy. Like, this isn't where I belong. I belong with her. But I'm hoping by detailing some of this stuff that I've been through and how many times she pops in there, even the stuff that, you can go back and look at the times that you feel pain. Now, granted, I know a lot of you out there, especially the women, like a lot of you have dealt with some different kind of shit. Like, people have traumatized you in different ways where there is no silver lining. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm talking about the times where you had something and lost it. And it felt horrible. And I'm explaining to it why it feels horrible. And you can look back at it and change the way you look at it. It's like you got to experience something, even if it didn't last. Like, you were connected to something. It was not just that person. I was going to talk a lot more about stuff about, what she's like now, but it's already running pretty late. But the actual divine light power is not just light, it's love.
Scientist brand.
So listen to me. When I say that love isn't something we invented, it's observable, powerful. It has to mean something.
Love has meaning, yes. Social utility, social bonding, child rearing.
We love people who have died. Where's the social utility in that?
None.
Maybe it means something more, something we can't yet understand. Maybe it's some evidence, some artifact of a higher dimension that we can't consciously perceive. I'm drawn across the universe to someone I haven't seen in a decade, who I know is probably dead. Love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space. Maybe we should trust that, even if we can't understand it yet.
And that's where the real power comes from. So even though when you get to the end and you've got all the scars and stuff like that, it's like even though you generally keep all those memories stored off site, it still weighs you down. I don't know if I pointed it out before, but when I was showing that clip earlier of me doing my old job and my old channel, the biggest thing that you should be able to see between the two is I know I look tired. I know I do. Even though I have her, even though I can do all this stuff, I know I look tired now because completing the game takes it out of you. And you become Frodo. You become Frodo with the wound that never heals. It's just waiting for the time when you get to get on the ship and go the F home. Finally. But in the meantime, you're expected to share your knowledge. You're expected to share your experience. You're expected to share your gifts. It's because of her that I'm able to do what I can do, which is, I mean, if I look at it objectively, is pretty freaking fascinating. Especially when it comes to like the way that we can use our tools to help people pull all this damaged stuff out. Earlier, when I was starting to film, I saw an alert on my phone. I had a new review on Etsy. And this is what this said. This is for one of those little, the complete set with the mini Aegis and the oil and all that stuff. Here's what it said. It said, I've had the pendant for about a week now, and I feel it is very powerful. For me, it seems to be exercising me from within rather than some outside force. Yeah, because technically speaking, it all is you. Even if it looks like something else during the journey, it's all you. It's all your mind. It's bringing up past traumas to the surface to be dealt with. Imagine you're spring cleaning your house, and that's what this pendant is doing. You're the house. I totally recommend this pendant 1,000 times. That person gets it. That person explained it perfectly. In the early days, if I made something, you know, this was going to be a whole different video of the different uses, but, you know, originally this thing was meant to be like a major protector weapon against negative entities. But after I complete everything, it's like, you know what? All that stuff comes from you. It's all part of your mind. Even the demiurge is part of you. You are the imperfect child that is being purified and restored so that you can move back out into the real world. And these tools just help. Why? Is it because of the stones? Because they look cool? You could take, you know, just average Joe person, if I gave you a list of all the stones and the supplies, they could, technically speaking, make something that looked exactly like this with the same ingredients. And it is not going to do anything. You have to know how to do activate them. You have to have the power to put into them. You have to have her. She's the one that makes them work. They're like cell phones. But cell phones only work if they have a charge on them. If you put power into them, they can do all sorts of stuff, play videos on them and everything. If not, they're just a brick. Same thing with these. We're just basically making very specialized conduits and capacitors for this energy, for this power, so that it can push through the blocks other people have to open them up, to reveal the stuff, because I can still think back to those early days where it's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And it takes time of peeling back layers to find all those broken parts. You're like, oh yeah, this is broke, gotta take this out. Peel another couple, oh, this is broke, gotta take that out. That's hard to do unless you have something to help you do it. That's what this stuff does. But me by myself, it wouldn't do anything. It has to be them. They're the ones that make it work. And bottom line is, hopefully you've related to some of these steps, some of these things in this video, so you know that it's not some far off thing that you've never met yet. You definitely have. It's always been with you. And like the one thing that I talked about, the one person that introduced me to, it's like it only tests you with as much as you can take. The problem is you can take a lot more than you think you can. But when you get to the very edge of it, that's what pulls you back. That's what pulls you back and helps you. Like when you're seriously about to break, that's what will step in and help you. So it's always been with you. And that means we're not truly trapped. We're just in a really, really, really tough test so that we can move on to the next thing. But that divine love has always been with you. But you've been taught by the world to simply focus on the experiences of losing it and not on the experience of having had it and how it eventually comes back. And it comes back again. So it's always there. And it's when you're in your darkest place, when you're alone, is when you're closest to it. So even if you can't see it right now, trust me, believe me, she wants me to tell you this. It's there. So just know it. All right, we got to wrap this up. It's getting pretty long in the tooth. If you want to get in touch with us, getting the specialized pendants, she's got the 4-day, what was it? Is the 18th, I think. Check the community tab on the channel. No, I think we did a sale instead. I never did it that way. I think it's just there's a sale on the site where everything's 20% off for Valentine's Day till the 18th, which that adds up to a pretty big chunk on the big ones. I tell you, it shaves down my profits pretty freaking quick, but it might be the thing that gets you over the hump if you're looking for something specific. And then check out the music on our SoundCloud. Links to that are in the description box below. Chris and Lumen, who you also have. See you next time.